board with these initiatives. As many of you here know, at the Bauer College, we believe that our goal, our mission is to take the thought leadership that our faculty develop, use that to create a relevant and rigorous learning environment, and then use that to share it with the community and to create impact in the community for businesses so that business grows, the community prospers. In doing that, we also try to be what I call a neutral venue, an impartial resource that can sometimes bring together people that are not always going to see eye to eye. So we try to bring together business, academia, regulators, and engage them in conversations where we can all benefit. So in that sense, we're like the Switzerland of energy. At least that's what we like to think of ourselves. And our programs speak to that. We have so many programs in which so many of you participate at the undergraduate level, the graduate level, our Global Energy Executive MBA. We have a symposium that's being offered tomorrow all day on reliability and safety in the energy value chain. And I know some of you will be attending that. We have a great speaker today, and his background is so interesting and unique. Brings together the best of what I would call academia with not just a bachelor's or a master's, but a PhD to support what he's doing, but he's had such relevant industry experience. What I really like about the way we're doing these sessions is right before this lecture, we have our speakers engage with a small group of students in what we call a fireside chat atmosphere, where it's about sharing the speaker's personal story to inspire our students. And I just ran into a student, Jonathan, and I said, Jonathan, what was the best part of the fireside chat? And he said, it was wonderful, wonderful to see someone so excited about solar panels. I really think that's a refreshing break from what we normally hear. So I'm really excited and looking forward to listening to Dr. Smati speak. With that, I want to once again thank Sequent Energy. And to represent Sequent Energy, we have Bernie Open, who joins us at every one of these events, who is a solid supporter of what we do at the Global Energy Management Institute and at Bauer College. I also want to especially acknowledge Bauer College Advisory Board member Zilon Lee, who is here today. It's wonderful to have the board support us in everything we do. I also have folks that are part of our Global Energy Management Institute board. We have Sam Henry from GDF SUEZ. We have a whole team from GDF SUEZ. Thank you all for being here and for your participation. With that, Bernie, it's all yours.
I just want to echo our welcoming of all of you here. You know, Sequent and AGL, we've been sponsors of the Distinguished Leadership Series for, I think, since 2008. I'm very proud of it, and it's really great to still see the interest of folks that come out and listen to the topics that we present to you and the great speakers we have. Dr. Smati is definitely no exception. I think you'll definitely enjoy his talk. I believe our topic tonight is transition in energy. And I know a lot of folks around here now, some sectors of our industry may be feeling some concerns over some pricing, but I think Dr. Smati will remind us that there's always opportunities in the energy industry. And I think he'll touch on that, especially on the power generation side, and serving their retail customers and even in their LNG business. So with that, I'm going to welcome Dr. Smati.
Thanks to the University of Houston for inviting me. Thanks to the Bauer College for inviting me. Thanks to all of you for coming to listen to me. The main topic, no? I thought I turned it on. So so you did hear me. Am I going to repeat everything again? Yes? No? Okay. The main topic tonight is really about energy transition. And how changes in technology are going to impact everything that we do, at least as far as the energy is concerned, and how they are really impacting our business in a remarkable way. And how it's impacting our company, GDF SUEZ. GDF SUEZ is a very large company and it's impacting us in a huge way. As a result of that, what I want to do, the way I want to structure my talk is in 3 points. First, perhaps tell you about GDF SUEZ. I know many of you know about GDF SUEZ, yes? No? How many people have heard of GDF SUEZ, by the way? What? That's good. I know you've heard about GDF SUEZ, so we talked earlier. So, you know, it's really interesting. I want to talk about GDF SUEZ first, and then I want to talk about energy transition, how it affects the energy business. And then I want to talk about the impact on GDF SUEZ and what are we doing as a company in order to be ready for this massive change that's happening in the energy industry. So GDF SUEZ, despite the fact that not many people maybe have heard about GDF SUEZ or of us, we really are a very old company. We go back a long, long time. In fact, we go back even before the construction of the Suez Canal. Yes, there is the Suez name there, and the Suez name comes from the construction of the Suez Canal. It was actually a Frenchman, somebody called Ferdinand de Lesseps, back in 1858, was talking to the king of Egypt. He said, I could actually build you a canal that would link the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. And he did. He formed a company, which is Compagnie du Canal Maritime Suez. And then he built this canal. It took 10 years to build it, 100 miles long, about 18 or so feet deep. It cost $100 million to build. Apparently, the Egyptian government doubled that, and they had a plan to do it as of last year, and they're apparently going forward with it, and it's going to cost $9 billion to do. So clearly, inflation has been quite high over the past 150 years or so. So one part of our heritage goes back to the Suez Canal, and we've been building big infrastructure projects around the world ever since. The other part of us, so that's the Suez part, the other part of us is Tractable. And that's really where we have our expertise in the energy business and electricity business. And that is a company in Belgium and Holland that was a distribution company. It was actually selling both water as well as electricity. And that's the second part of our business. The third part of our business, I guess, is GDF. And GDF is Gas de France, which is the company that supplies gas to really almost everybody in France. So it has like 95% market share. So these three companies came together. It initially was Suez that brought them together, and we merged with a number of companies. And in fact, the company that I joined here 15 years ago now, in the US, in Houston, was called Tractable, which was partly owned by Suez. Then Suez bought 100% of Tractable, and then in 2008 we merged with GDF, so we became GDF Suez. And then 2010 we merged with another company called International Power, and as you can see there, then we became International Power GDF Suez, and now we dropped the name International Power, so we're GDF Suez. That is why not so many people know about us. Now, but more seriously, who are we? A company that is $120 billion in terms of revenues. That was back in 2014. I must say that was when the euro was still strong. The euro has collapsed recently. So I shouldn't say $120 billion, I should say $74.7 billion, because I think we're getting to parity between the euro and the dollar. I think the other thing that's very important is we have 150,000 employees around the world. So we really are quite big. In terms of power generation, we are by far the largest power company in the world. We have 115,000 megawatts in operation today, almost all over the world. And we are building another 10,000 megawatts. So if you look at us from a power perspective, we are the #1 company by far. And we are the most international power company by far. We're also in the gas business. We are probably number 2 and number 3 gas company in the LNG business. We sell a lot of LNG, we have a lot of LNG, and we produce a lot of gas and oil as well. We're in the E&P business, not so much in the United States, but we're in the E&P business in some parts of Europe, in Africa, and the Middle East as well. We are in the retail business. We sell electricity, we sell gas, we sell services for lots of customers around the world. And we are in the energy services business. We have a very large team of 70,000 people that sell services, especially in Europe. In fact, in Europe, we are by far the largest services company. Some numbers there, just so that you feel for the size. By far, Europe is clearly the biggest. Is there a pointer here that I can use or no? That's okay. So, by far, oh yeah. Okay, here it is. What works now? Europe, by far, is the largest. We're split in different regions, and the European region is by far the biggest. Revenues of 54 billion euros, lots of megawatt there. Employees, 132,000 people work for us in Europe. So by far, it's the largest region. I guess the second largest region in terms of profits and revenues is North America, where we are. 3.8 billion. We only have 2,600 people. So you can see how efficient we are here in North America. With 2,600 people, we have a lot of revenue. We have a lot of megawatt as well. We have a big energy business, which I'll talk about. We also, in Latin America, we are also, which is also a very big region. We're in Asia, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. So a little bit more detailed about each region. In North America, we have lots of activities. We have power generation, we have gas, and we have retail. If you look at Latin America is also quite big. We are very in Brazil. We have a lot of hydropower generation, and we're building one of the largest hydropower in the world. It's about 4,000 megawatts. It's the Jirau plant. Just to give you a sense of perspective, to build this power plant, before we started building this hydro plant, we in fact built 2 towns first, bring people in there before we started building the hydro dam, which is huge and cost $1 billion. Pointer, I'm sorry, thank you so much. Oh, okay. You can see it very well, yes? Yes. So, if you look at Latin America, huge activity, especially in Brazil, but we're also active in Chile, we're active in Peru. That gives you a little bit sense, because I want to set the story a little bit for you, to give you a sense that we're building big things. 1,000 megawatts, just to give you a sense of size. 1,000 megawatt power plant will cost well over $1 billion. So when you do these things, they cost a lot of money, and they need a lot of resources to build them. And then we operate them for a long period of time, 25 to 30 years. And by the way, around the world, wherever we're active, most of our customers, and I want to talk about customers a lot, most of our customers are the government. In fact, so we deal lots with governments because we build big things. If you look at Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa, there are lots of megawatt there. You can see it's 26.8 gigawatts, which are in operation. A number of power plants are under construction as well. And there we're active almost in all parts of the Middle East. If you look at the Gulf states, we're active in Saudi Arabia, we're active in Qatar, in Oman, in the UAE. So almost everywhere we built a power plant with a desalination facility, because they need power as well as water there as well. So if If you look at Asia Pacific, our activities, big activities we have in Singapore, in Thailand, in India, in the Philippines, in Pakistan. Quite big there. We don't have huge activities in China. We have some activities, but not huge. And UK, Europe here, we singled out UK, Europe because remember we're kind of a European company. UK is not quite European, so it's on the other side of the channel. So we single it out as a separate region here. And I think that's why we're looking at it that way. Again, big activities in the UK here, partly because of the number of acquisitions there. Now, coming back to North America. What do we have in North America? What have we been doing? We've been here for 23 years. When we first came to the United States, we really built and bought small power plants. That's all that was available to do at that time. We built small 20 megawatt power plants, some of them were wood plants, etc. And then we increased our investment and we increased our size. We've invested over the years around $15 billion here in the United States. Huge amount of money. And what do we have? Well, we have 2 LNG facilities, one onshore, one offshore, in Massachusetts. They're capable of bringing 700, well actually one of them, Everett, is around 700 million cubic feet a day, Neptune is around 500, so we have 2 of those. We also have a big storage, gas storage business, 12 BCF of gas storage, mostly in Texas. We have pipelines. We have 2 pipelines that are in operations, 900 kilometers. Both of them are actually in Mexico. But we also finished building 1 pipeline, Mayacan, which is an extension of the existing pipeline. And we are also building right now a big, huge Los Alamos pipeline, which links Texas to Mexico, almost Mexico City, bring gas, US gas to Mexico. So that's a full pipeline that we are building. We have gas distribution, where we sell gas to both residential as well as industrial customers. We have 400,000 customers, and we have 6 gas distribution companies there. We have a big retail business. Sam actually managed the retail business here. Huge, is probably number 3 or number 4 retail company in the United States. Most of our assets are either in Texas, Mexico, the Northeast, or Canada as well. In Canada, we have a lot of renewable. And I want to pause here a little bit. I talked a little bit about SUEZ, but I also want to talk about the environment where we are operating. We operate in the United States. In the United States, if you look at the forecast in terms of GDP, it's around 3%. For some, it doesn't mean maybe it's not too high. To others, it's too high. It depends where you are. But I can tell you, talking to my colleagues around the world, we are the envy of the rest of the world because GDP growth is there, the economy is booming. If you look also at population growth, we have 320 million people. The population is growing at a rate of 1%. People would actually, I was going to say, would kill for that. And maybe they would, especially Europeans, because if you look at population growth in Europe, it's actually going down in Italy, particularly in Germany. So it's really important to look at the competitive advantage that we have in the US. So population growth, young population, GDP growth of 30%. We have such a dynamic, innovative environment. People are innovating, people are coming up with all sorts of things all the time. And there's also regional diversity. It's not uniform. People who don't know the United States tend to look at the United States as one country. Well, it's not. For us who live here in Texas, Texas is the most dynamic state in the US. In fact, if you look at job growth, 50% or maybe a bit more than 50% of the jobs that have been created in the United States actually were created in Texas over the past 10 or 15 years. So it is remarkable the advantages that we have. I remember not long ago, I was asked by the board to go and make a presentation about whether we should invest more in the US, etc. So I prepared this presentation. And that was the day, it was actually maybe a year ago now, maybe a little bit more than a year ago. It was the day when the iPhone 5 was coming out. It came out on a Wednesday. I left on Wednesday and I landed there on Thursday. When I landed in Paris, the news were all about the new iPhone. So I went straight into in for the board meeting, which was at 1 o'clock. So I got there, time for lunch. I was having lunch with all the board members. Everybody was asking me questions. They were saying, you know, what about the iPhone? Is it good? Do you think you should buy it? By the way, is it available there? Everybody was asking me that question during lunch. Then I stood up to make my presentation. Remember, the theme was, should we invest more in the US? I said, well, let me tell you before I start my presentation, let me tell you, when I was here earlier having lunch with you, you all asked me about the iPhone 5. Let me tell you about the iPhone. iPhone is a product that didn't exist 5 years before that, 5 years ago. Remember, it was a year and a half ago, whatever it was. I said 5 years ago, the iPhone didn't exist. Okay? Now, everybody is talking about it in every single newspaper in Europe, let alone in the US. And what's more, the number of iPhones that have been sold added 0.5% to the GDP of the United States, which is huge. Just imagine. So I said, do you really want me to continue my presentation about what I'm doing? So it really is remarkable what is going on in North America. And honestly, our business here, GDF has done well as a result of being here. We have only 2,200 employees, so not many employees compared to many other regions. But we are number one LNG, where here in the US we've been serving New England for a long time. And at one point we used to serve 25% of the needs of New England. We have 13,000 megawatts of power generation. A lot of that is hydro, wind, etc. In fact, we only have one coal-fired power plant. Everything else is gas or hydro, wind or solar. So we really are into renewable energy in a big way. We have a very large retail business where we sell electricity and gas to C&I customers, but we are also, I see John here, John Henderson, who's in charge of Think Energy, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is really focusing on selling electricity and eventually gas and other products to residential, which is really important. And we are top 5 wind operator in Canada. I told you about Mexico. And Mexico, I'm really excited also about Mexico, because Mexico is doing something that really hasn't been done in Mexico for a long time. I think this government, this president, has done a remarkable thing in a short space of time that he's been president. The first thing that he's been able to do, that no other president has been able to do, was to change the constitution to allow investment in upstream oil and gas by international companies. That is quite remarkable, because today, up to this point, only Pemex can do that. So he moved essentially away the grip of Pemex on E&P, and he's allowed a lot of other companies to come in. And that is, in my opinion, quite remarkable, because as a result of that, many people are forecasting just that change in the constitution, the fact that people are going to come and invest in Mexico in the E&P sector, is going to add around 1% of the GDP of Mexico. It is truly remarkable. And as a result of that, there is growth, and Mexico has a number of competitive advantages. In fact, I can name many, but let me just leave you with 3 competitive advantages that they have. Number 1 competitive advantage that they have is that they have low-cost labor. So they can attract a lot of companies to go invest in Mexico. In fact, if you look at the car industry around the world, and this is a statistic that not many people are aware of, companies around the world, Mexico produces more cars than any other country in the world. There are more car companies now in Mexico than any other country around the world. It is truly remarkable. That's number 1, so low-cost labor. Number 2, low-cost energy. This boom in terms of shale gas that's happening in the US, but it's moving to Mexico. A lot of gas is actually moving to Mexico, and as a result of that, they have access to low-cost energy as well. And finally, they're close to the United States. Huge market. So when you put these 3 together, it makes Mexico truly unique. And that is why, look at, this is a complicated map, but what you can see here, these are all the new projects, only in the power business and the gas business, that are going to go for bids. These are all new pipelines that needs to be built. These are all new power plants that needs to be constructed. And if you look at just the coming up bids, here, for example, in the first quarter, there are 3 power plants that are coming up in the first quarter of 2015. Amazing, truly amazing. This will cost billions and billions of dollars to do, and therefore they need tremendous investments from lots of companies from around the world. We have been in Mexico for around 20 years, so we've stayed in Mexico through the ups and downs of the Mexican economy. We have a good reputation there. But I tell you, I go to Mexico on a regular basis. I go there every couple of weeks or so. The only thing I don't like about Mexico anymore is actually getting into Mexico and the lines when you get to the airport. It is mind-boggling. Before it used to be easy to get into Mexico. There weren't that many people, but now there are so many people going into Mexico that they realize the opportunities available there. The other thing that's also remarkable is that because of this boom that's going on there, it's actually very difficult to find talented people, young people, etc. Well, there are some, but everybody is bidding for the same kind of talent, young people, highly qualified people. So it is truly amazing. So, now that's GTF SUEZ. Last thing I want you to finish with is the goals that we have. And then I switch gears a little bit and talk about energy. The goals. Before, if you invited me, had you invited me 2 years ago, I said we have one goal. And the goal is to build infrastructure projects around the world. But really things are different and changing. We have kind of 2 goals now. One focused on what we call mature markets, United States, Europe, UK, etc. And there, we really want to be a leader in the position in mature markets. We've been doing that, and I explain what that is. The second goal, which is really around emerging markets. In emerging markets, we still want to, we are by far the benchmark energy player, and we want to remain so. We want to continue to build big power plants, big gas plants, etc. But even emerging markets are changing. It's not just mature markets. I saw that in Mexico. Mexico is moving, and Brazil is moving that way, etc. Now, energy transition. When will it happen? What is it? Will it happen soon? Well, the answer, it is happening now. This is a very busy slide, and it's a very important time. There are a number of disruptive technologies that are happening right now, which are changing really the energy scene in a massive way. First one that I'm sure a lot of you have heard about is really the residential PV solar business. There are so many companies now active in the United States, and all over the world, by the way, not just in the US. But if you look at, is it happening? Where is it happening? Well, I tell you what, in California, people have been building them since 2012 because it was cheaper to build solar PV, or rooftop solar, than buying electricity from the utility. By 2013, New York, yes, even though they don't have a lot of sun compared to us here, parity happened in 2013. You look, parity will happen in other markets. ERCOT is Texas. Texas has really low-cost electricity right now, very low-cost electricity. But even with very low-cost electricity, by 2018, you'll see parity between rooftop solar and electricity that you buy from people. That is massive. That is huge. The other thing, the next question is, okay, you can put rooftop solar, but you know, maybe you can use solar during the day. What about night? Well, at night you have to have electricity from your utility. So can you completely disconnect? Completely. Well, the answer is maybe. PV plus battery means that you can actually disconnect your electricity. Where is it happening? In Hawaii. Hawaii, people are completely disconnected from the utility. In fact, it's a big threat to the utility there. In fact, the utility, Hawaii utility, has just been bought by Florida Power Line to an extent. Because really the demand has been going down in a massive way. So Hawaii is there, but that is for commercial, but some residential too. And then you can see here where it's going to happen, whether it's for commercial or residential. So the forecast, and this is, I would say it's probably an older slide now because it's 6 months old. Things change so fast, and if I was to do this again, I would move some of those things which are on the right and move them to the left. So another technology, electric vehicle. Today, the market is around 100,000. 100,000 vehicles have been sold. But the forecast is we're going to go to 1 million and more. Here we talk about electrical vehicle around the world, but the numbers relate to the US. I also want to highlight the special situation of the United States. We have a lot of gas. We have relatively low-cost gas. And I think instead of, as well as electrical vehicle, we're going to have gas-fired vehicles as well, using CNG, or big trucks using LNG. This is using compressed gas, or using for small vehicles using liquid natural gas for big vehicles. So that's another alternative. Gas-based distributed generation, partnered with the retail. Well, that's real enough in most markets. This is, if gas is cheap, this is instead of building a big power plant with a big gas turbine, you can actually build a small power plant with a small gas turbine. Because of the cost of electricity, the cost of gas, and the efficiency of this new small gas turbine, you can actually build it almost in your backyard and use it and disconnect from the grid. So that is a reality. A lot of the industrial companies are actually there. They use cogen, they use where they can supply additional electricity, steam as well. Net metering. This is happening in many states, not everywhere. Net metering really is very simple. It's the concept to say that if I buy electricity from the grid, I buy it at whatever price, let's say 10 cents. But if I sell it, I should be able to sell it for 10 cents as well. I'm simplifying it. And therefore, that's how it should be. Some utilities are resisting that. They say, no. When you buy it at 10 cents because you're paying, in addition to electricity, you're paying for the cost of the grid. When you sell it to us, you should sell it to us at wholesale price. So, and of course at wholesale price it would be a lot less. But in some states, it's operating with net metering. In others, we're not there yet. Texas, we're not there yet. And smart meters. Smart meters is another area which is quite remarkable. There are today about 15 million smart meters installed. And in Cleveland, Houston, and all these smart meters. That's enabling the new technology, this new evolution that's happening. That's a two-way traffic for electricity. You can then bring your consumption up and down. If you have demand response, somebody can actually reduce your consumption without you having to do anything about it. So smart meters enable us to work in a really different way. So these are really happening now, and they're shaping the industry as we know it. There are also other powerful forces, big forces, that also are changing the industry, and they're really shaping this energy transition. For us in the US, shale gas and shale oil, it is truly a game changer. It is really massive, and that is happening today. The second one is this disruptive technology that we just talked about, distributed generation. The third one is the consumer or the prosumer. The consumer now wants to consume and wants also to sell. So you have the concept of selling and buying. And energy policies also are having some impact as well. So shale gas is huge. Everybody, of course, we're in Texas, we know about it, we understand it, etc., etc. But to think about it, back in 2007, that's not long ago, gas really was moving from mostly here up to the northeast. There was gas coming from Canada, there was gas coming from the west, all going to the northeast market where there was massive consumption. That's how the flow of gas really was working. And gas prices were high. This is Henry Hub at $7. There were times when Henry Hub was $15. Really, really massive. That was then. Look at it now. Gas is actually coming down. Where is it going? It's going to export market. There's some gas coming in. That's us bringing still some gas, because there is still a need for some LNG, especially in Europe and there. But look at the basis. Basis is becoming better. So So when you get your gas, when you move it now, you have to pay something to move it from one area to another. And this is massive because think about it. 2007, maybe what I should have put in here should have put terminals. Before 2007, the deal was the United States is going to be the largest importer of gas in the world. I was saying to some people earlier, there was a conference, I think it was 2007, 2008, here, Sierra Conference. The theme was the US, the biggest importer of energy in the world. And we were going to be bigger than even Korea and Japan were the largest importers of energy in the world. And as a result of that, people here are very entrepreneurial. Everybody started building terminals. A lot of them were built. Terminals, these are import terminals. Import terminals are not that expensive. They only cost around $1 billion each. They're not huge. And so some of them lost a lot of money as a result of that. And those terminals are fine because we were supposed to be the biggest importer in the world. Now, what is happening? Same math. You find lots of terminals, except that this time they're all export terminals. And people are building export terminals to really move gas from the United States to Asia and to Europe. And there are 3 terminals that got permits that are being built right now. One of them is ours, which we are building. So change is massive. So we moved from import to export, and within this export terminal, each terminal will cost around $10 billion. So order of magnitude. And when you have a terminal to export energy, you need also to build ships to move these gas. So massive change, and I want you to be aware of it because it's having a big impact on the United States. And the other thing as well is a lot of the shale gas, look at the increase, massive. Look at where we are now, look where we will be by 2030. Marcellus region will have, will probably need 40% of the US shale gas. And shale is about 45 to 50% of the US gas supply. So massive quantities of gas are available in the United States. And also, if you look at job growth in the past few years, shale gas alone actually provided around 1 million jobs. Either directly or indirectly. That's also quite important. So that is one thing that is having a huge impact on our industry, economy, also on technologies that are based on gas. The second one is really all about the disruptive technology. Things are happening much faster than before. Look at it. These are waves of technologies. It used to take us 100 years for one technology, one innovation, maybe 90 years, etc. But now, the innovations are happening. They really are happening faster, in a much shorter space of time, so it's really shorter, and the impact is bigger. It is truly remarkable. If you look at just the iPhone, as I was telling you, the iPhone, after 5 years, was able to add 0.5% to the GDP growth of the United States. It's truly remarkable. Look at the impact of the Tesla car. I mean, Tesla, as a company, is building a factory in Nevada that would be able to produce 500,000 vehicles a year, which means also 500,000 batteries, which would be very more batteries than that. The innovation from Google, you probably know more about it than I do. The Nest thermostat that is now part of Google. It is truly amazing innovation that is happening. But the other innovation that I touched on earlier is really, this is a business slide, and I apologize about it. Why is this innovation happening? Look at the solar PV, the cost of solar. Only 5 years ago, solar installed cost, if you were to buy and install it in your home, it would cost you $4.64 per watt to install. That was 5 years ago. Now it is 50% cheaper. Down to 50%. And the forecast, today's forecast, by the way, is in 5 years it will be 1.8. I'm willing to bet it's going to be less than that. Some forecasters suggest 1.5. It seems remarkable what has happened. As a result of that, look at the impact in terms of the installed capacity here. We are at 23 gigawatts, will be at 100 gigawatts. And by the way, just to remind you, the installed capacity of the United States is around 1,000 gigawatts. So it might be 10%. It's huge in a very short space of time. It really is amazing. And if you look at today, if you look at just solar PV, well, it's 18 gigawatts of solar PV. And a third of that was done last year. So if a third of it was done last year, just imagine what could happen very, very quickly. And this curve could actually be a lot steeper than what it really is. That was the first one. The second innovation is in batteries. Batteries, look again at the cost of batteries. This is in 3 years. It came down from $1,000 per kilowatt hour to $540 per kilowatt hour. It is remarkable. If you look at the grid scale batteries, look at the cost coming down from 6,000 down to 5,000. And that will change, will revolutionize the solar industry as well. Then it can be something. If you have solar plus battery technology, it's much. And the last thing that you're obviously aware of and that contributed to energy, look at the global computing cost, how it came down. This is going back to 1990, $527 per million transistors. It's now 5 cents. It's truly remarkable. As a result of that, if you look at global storage costs, how they've gone down, or you look at essentially the information that is being used, how they're gone up. It's massive. It really is massive in a big way. If you look at just smartphone users in the United States are forecasted to grow from 60 million to 150 million. It is amazing. So the growth is remarkable. Smart meters, I discussed that, and this is really important because this is the cornerstone of everything else. It also is the cornerstone of the revolution that we are seeing in our industry. The third one is about the empowered consumer, and it's really you here, the student, the new generation, the rise of the millennial generation is having a huge impact because you're much more demanding. You believe 80% expect companies to align with their beliefs and to be green. 80% of that want actually renewable energy. You believe in that. Trust, this is not good news for us. 83% don't trust large companies, but you trust your peers. So if somebody says, I've done that, you probably would do it again, but if you would do it, you copy your peer, but you wouldn't trust a big company if they say, well, this is a good product, you should buy it. So different interaction. Independence, you're much more independent. You want things to be personalized. You want things now, you want everything, and you want it now. And ideally, you want it on an iPhone as well. So that is remarkable. That is why, for example, in terms of us selling electricity, we want to be able to make sure that we can transact everything from the iPhone, because that's where we are heading. Energy policy, really the main thing I want to leave you with in terms of energy policy is that even though the EPA has some rules, etc., but honestly, in the United States, I don't know whether you really need a stringent energy policy when it comes to rules for the environment. Why? Because gas, low-cost gas, had an impact on that. In fact, because of low-cost gas, 70,000 megawatts of coal-fired power plants have closed down. It's very high. Remember, in the United States, we have a third of our generation that's coming from nuclear, a third that's coming from gas, and a third that's coming from coal. And the amount that's coming from coal is going down because coal cannot compete with gas. It is truly massive. Energy efficiency is also having an impact. It's very simple. Everything that's being done now is more efficient, and it's even if you look at LED light bulbs. I'm truly amazed. 2 or 3 years ago, I went to Home Depot to buy some bulbs, and I bought one of these LED bulbs, and I paid, I think, $25 for a bulb. Today, you go to Home Depot to buy for $1. It is amazing, amazing how they bring the cost down. That's huge, because even if you don't do anything else, if people start changing their life path, it's going to have a huge impact on demand and how demand will go down. Demand for energy is going to go down in the next year. Finally, wholesale power market is getting transition. A lot of changes are happening. So, what are we really doing about it? We as a company, I told you about all these things that are happening. So, what are we really doing? If you look at our, especially here in North America, look at our gas business. Remember, we're doing 2 things first. We have the import terminals, big, invested in big. We are still investing in big terminals, billions of dollars, Cameron facility, which is in Louisiana, to export gas. That is because there are still markets in Asia that still need gas, so we are doing that. But if you look at what we are doing really in the United States, we are moving away from big things to smaller things. For example, we have in Mexico now, CNG fueling stations, where we sell compressed natural gas to customers. Some of them have their cars using CNG, and so we sell that. Here in the United States, in Boston, we sell LNG to large trucks. In fact, we have a filling station in Boston. People can come in and fill up with liquid natural gas for their trucks. So we're moving towards that, so we want to meet the needs of the customer. The customer wants these products now. We need to be close to the customer. It is important that we meet the needs of the industrial customer as well as the residential customer in some cases. And also technology is changing. Talking about CNG, I mentioned earlier that in the United States, electric cars will happen and they're happening, but also cars that use CNG will happen. In fact, innovation again, GE some time ago announced that they're building, or they came up with a compressor, small compressor, that they can sell for under $1,000 that you can put in your garage, and you can fill up your car from your own gas. So this is a small compressor for less than $1,000 that also doesn't make a lot of noise. So if that was to happen, they'd be able to market it. They may need to reduce the price a little more. People then will start moving towards CNG to charge your car now. Because right now, in Houston, by the way, there's some charging stations. If you go to Post Boulevard behind our building, you will see that there is a charging station for CNG. So some trucks, AT&T in fact have converted all their trucks to using gas. And they're coming there and they're filling up with CNG with gas. They're running gas. So, but to run, for cars to run on gas, somehow you need to come up with these compressors and a little more. I think it's happening. I think innovation is happening. People are researching that. Canadians are doing some research. And I think it will happen. So that's really important. In terms of power generation, we have big power plants. We understand that. We've been doing that for a long time. But we need to move now towards different distributed generation. We need to move towards being more flexible with our way of doing that. I don't believe, by the way, that all of a sudden these big things are going to shut down. We're going to shut down all the power plants in the United States. It's impossible. It's 1,000 gigawatts. It's huge. And it's going to take some time for it. Our job in SUEZ is to keep this running for as long as possible. But at some point they'll go down. So instead of having a curve that does this, and they go down drastically, you lose them all. So we want to keep them going for as long as possible. We want to make as much money as we can from these facilities.
And at the same time, we are nurturing these small businesses in this energy transition. Hopefully, by the time this business goes down, you have these businesses that will grow up and prosper and do very well. If you look at the area around retail energy, we have a very big business, very successful business, focusing on CNI, and it's called EDF Energy Resources North America. And it's a mouthful, I apologize about that, but it's GSONA for short. If you have a business, a restaurant, whatever, you can buy electricity through GSONA.com. However, we also moved now to creating a company called Think Energy. ThinkEnergy.com is a company now that can sell electricity to residential customers. And not in Texas yet, it's mostly in the Northeast. John promised me that it would be in Texas in the third quarter, I think you said, John. So it'll be in third quarter. And what happens is, sorry? July, that's great. Hello. So July you'll be able to buy hopefully electricity from us here in Texas too. But the key thing about it is how do you interact with Think Energy? You certainly go to the computer, you look at us, you find out about it, and you call us and we send you, by the way, a salesperson who will come to you, talk to you, etc. Transaction will take a long, long time. With Think Energy, today people in the Northeast really can transact with us in 1, 2, 3. Enter your zip code now. 1, 2, you select. We only sell 3 products. You can sell your electricity for 1 year fixed price, electricity for 3 years fixed price, and electricity variable electricity price. That's it. And then you transact, you enter your information. Hopefully the contract is actually very short, half a page, and you transact. So it's a very easy way of doing this. But guess what? We're not going to stop there. We are selling you electricity. We can sell you gas too. But we're not really stopping there because the aim is to sell you other products. If you think a little bit of a cable company today, it's a voice, it's an internet, it's a TV, home automation, etc. Where we are heading is the same thing. You can have a number of products. You come to us, we sell you electricity. By the way, if you want to buy solar power from us, we can do that too. Because what we are doing is buying stakes in smaller companies. We got a stake in a solar company called Wonder Roof Energy. And now, John, together with Wonder Roof, they're able to go to the consumer, again on the internet, and say, you want to buy electricity, this is the price. You want to buy solar, we can install solar PV on the roof as well. Right? So price, with the savings you're going to get. And by the way, instead of buying solar and then you go to your utility to buy electricity at night, if you have excess electricity, we can take care of all of that. You don't have to worry about it. Install solar PV on your roof. If you need extra electricity, we can supply it. At night, if you have extra electricity, we can take it away from you, and the savings will be X. So it's a seamless experience. You're dealing with EDF, with who we are, etc. And then battery power, as it becomes more available, you can supply it with that too. We can supply the residual power, particularly more. Demand response is very important. Some businesses, they want, for example, if prices are very high. Remember, we have smart meters now. Prices are very high. We can automatically, from a distance, reduce your demand. It saves you a lot of money as a result of that. So that's another product we can say. You optimize your energy. If you believe in green products, etc., that's what we would sell you. So where we are heading is really towards the concept of you can choose what you want from the new energy company. Even though we are very big, big power plants, big gas plants, we explore gas for gas and power and all over the world. We recognize that the world really is moving in a huge way, and we want to operate in every country. Our ultimate goal is really to create options and create value for our customers. Because really, at the end of the day, what we want to do is to survive the next century like we survived the last century. Thank you very much for your time. I believe it's now time for questions and answers.
Questions? Is GDP SUEZ interested in expanding their CNG station throughout the United States, not just Texas?
Yeah, absolutely interesting. At the end of the day, it depends on demand. So it's a little bit like the chicken and the egg, both for CNG and LNG, because we are interested in doing that. But again, a consumer needs to buy the big that uses CNG or LNG. LNG, people are doing that, especially companies that own big trucks. So that is happening. CNG penetration in the US is not huge yet, except with smaller trucks. Some companies, like I said, AT&T, etc., are doing it. But we're working with many companies, and the aim is to move people towards CNG and LNG. Remember also that cost is a big thing for many of these companies, and they are beginning to see the difference in cost between, or they did see difference in cost between diesel and CNG or LNG. So these trucks now use diesel, and they will switch to CNG. That was the case when oil prices, by the way, were $120. It was a no-brainer. Lots of people were moving. But now that oil prices have come down to $50, the cost of diesel has come down. There's still a bit of a difference between the cost of CNG, LNG versus diesel. But the cost, the difference is not huge. I think it's going to be a little bumpy over the next year or 2 years until oil prices. And if anybody is going to ask me about my forecast for oil prices, I can also tell you that prices will go up when nobody knows. Also, I can also tell you that they will also go down. So, they go down. I used to work for BP before SUEZ, by the way. And actually, I was in Amapro then, we merged with BP. And the reason for the merger is actually low oil prices. That's why there was consolidation in the industry. Then oil prices were which was kind of normal. And when we did our forecast, really our long-term forecast was all based on oil price of $15. Things changed. That was not a long time ago.
I have a question regarding the electricity industry. What is your perspective on the future as the market for electricity, whether that be generated or whether it be geothermal? What's your perspective on it?
The question was, what is my perspective on the future of the electricity industry, whether it be solar, geothermal, where is it moving towards? The United States is really a big market. I think the United States will need all the technologies. So I don't think we will be moving, as I was trying to explain, very fast towards one technology or the other. What will happen is it will be a move from big power plants towards distributed power, so towards smaller power plants that you can put in your backyard. I think there will be room for small gas-fired power plants, gas turbines. I think there is room for geothermal, which is the case today. Solar, there is room for wind as well. That will continue. Wind prices, cost of building a wind power plant is also going down. And I think solar will play a significant role. Honestly, the future is going to be solar together with battery. Battery prices will continue to go down. We link them together. Then that's where the energy is going to go, electricity is going to go. It's a big threat for companies like us. So we have to move fast and we have to do it. That's the reason.
And you mentioned that, sorry, asking one more question. You mentioned that it's a competition for oil, gas, or is it what source of energy is solar panels or solar panel type of technology? What type of energy would be coming with those sources?
The question is what type of energy source will be competing with solar, essentially. I think given the cost where solar is going, I think it's very difficult to compete with it, at least when it comes to electricity generation or heating, some application like heating, etc. clearly, oil will be with us for a while. It's very difficult to compete with oil, especially in the transport industry. It's going to be very difficult. So oil will be with us for a while. I think the threat to oil long term is either the CNG, natural gas. In the US, I think gas is quite expensive, for example, in Europe. So there is an uptick in CNG in Europe that is not huge. But electric vehicles will be the other one. So there could be actually massive displacement away from oil towards electric vehicles. And again, all goes back to battery technology. The cost of, because right now it's still expensive to buy an electric car. The cost will continue to go down. I think you see lots of people moving towards electric vehicles. That will have an impact on oil. So oil could lose. The loser today, as far as I'm concerned, is coal. Coal really is going down big time. In fact, the US is consuming less and less coal. In fact, to talk a little bit about CO2, etc. You know the US has not signed the Kyoto Protocol, and there everybody, all the countries around the world agree to reduce their CO2, except for the US and do anything about it. Except that what happens now, the only country in the world that has reduced massively its CO2 emission is the United States. Why? Thanks to shale gas, because huge quantities of gas that we were using, especially in power generation, which automatically reduce the amount of CO2 because of all these coal-fired power plants that closed down, which is quite remarkable. Again, another impact of shale gas, which is keeps giving actually. Please.
What future prospects do you have for Mexico and other Latin American countries?
For which country?
Mexico and other
Mexico.
Latin American
Okay. Mexico, I am a great believer in Mexico. I think Mexico is going to do wonderful things. I really believe that. I think they have what it takes to grow. I told you the 3 reasons why I believe Mexico is going to do very well. So I think Mexico is going to be number 1. For a long time, we had Brazil that was number 1. Everybody, when they talk about Latin America, they talk about Brazil, and the growth that happened in Brazil. We are very active in Brazil. In fact, we are one of the largest investors in Brazil right now. We went in there, built a lot of infrastructure. They did very well because they really had, Lula there as president. He was very charismatic. He was able to bring lots of companies. He stabilized the economy, and he did very well. The growth that we saw in Brazil was remarkable. GDP growth, it was at 5, 6%, etc. And Mexico should have been Brazil, but it wasn't, because they never really had a very strong leader that was able to do that. I think it's happening now. I really believe that the new government is doing very good. The fact that they have been able to change the constitution is truly remarkable, because to change the constitution, you need 2/3 of the congressmen to vote for it, and there are lots of parties, and how we managed to get them all aligned to do it and change the constitution is quite remarkable. When you look at what they want to do, I showed you that map, which is an amazing map, really, of the infrastructure projects that Mexico is going to build. All of that happens, coupled with the fact that it's right next to the US, so selling their products would not be very difficult, nor will it be far. I think Mexico has a great future. I think Colombia is another country that has a great future. So if I was to rank them from growth perspective and future, bright future, I would put Mexico as number 1, and I would put Colombia as number 2. I think Chile is also doing very well. So 1, 2, 3, I would put Mexico, Colombia, and Chile, although Chile is doing very well today. I think the potential for more growth is in Mexico and Colombia. Please.
Thank you. As a French multinational company corporation, what challenges and opportunities does SUEZ face domestically in the U.S. Compared to the market internationally?
What opportunities
Challenges and opportunities
that we face in the U.S.
in the domestic market and internationally.
You know, in the U.S., we are an international company, clearly, but our heritage is French, Belgium. So, even though we're international, we think a little bit differently. In many ways, we have this culture that is there in rule. Now, the challenges that we have in the US is very dynamic, very entrepreneurial, fast moving. Things happen to move very, very, very fast. And sometimes you have to adapt quickly. One reason we've been able to adapt is because we really stayed here for a long time. We hire local people, and we do things locally. And that's how we've been able to adapt. So, but it's sometimes hard to act as quickly as what what we demanded from the United States. I remember back in 2008 when we had the Great Recession here in the Western Europe. I was talking to my colleagues from other parts of the world, especially from Europe, and they used to tell me, that was 2008, they said, the US is really simply bad, the economy is going down here, employment is going down, it's very bad, we don't want to invest anymore here, it's just terrible. I was trying to explain to them, look, you should never really discount the US, because things can slide in Europe, because we didn't give them in 2008. Europe, because we have a stable economy, things are good, banking system is better, the banking system is terrible, our banking system is great. No. And then when it moves fast. The US, that's really, what I've done. I've been here for 20 years now. Things move, it's like a pendulum. In the United States, it moves faster. Then it moves to extremes all the time. In Europe, it doesn't do that. It's very slow. It can be good sometimes when you have a nice, stable environment. But if things don't or happen very quickly for you, then you can't respond. That's why Europe is struggling. Absolutely struggling. They cannot grow their economy. They tried everything because of the system that they have, because of the way they work, etc., etc. I could go on and on. But in the US, okay, there was a problem, let's fix it. People get together, fix it. It got fixed. Yes, we all complain and look at the government in Washington, they were doing this and they were doing that, and there was problem between the president and Congress, etc. But at the end of the day, things get wrong. And actually things get wrong. The states do it. That is the difference. So I think the US for a group like ours, honestly, is fantastic. Because we learn so much. They're great opportunities. Everything that we learn, we don't only see opportunities here. Because we take a lot of that being international. We take a lot of that technology, a lot of that learning, etc. to around. We move people now too. And as a result of that, we benefit. So the US is great. Please.
When planning future projects, what kind of underlying assumptions do you have about U.S. export policy?
U.S. export policy in terms of gas? Yeah. We, for example, when you look at our project, the export terminal of Canada, really we worked on it for a while. We were always confident that eventually we get permits to export gas to Asia, and we got it. 3 projects I think we got permits right now. Would there be more projects that get permits to export gas? I think so. I really think so. I think even though it's difficult to do it right now, I think eventually Congress, FERC will approve any project that will come, because that's the nature of nuclear business. But the question is, would there be more projects being built? I doubt it. I really do. Why? All our money to build an export terminal. $10 billion in plus. Plus you buy all the ships, each ship costs $500 million, etc. Plus you have to find markets. And there is competition too from around the world. I mean, today probably the biggest supplier of LNG is Australia, just ahead of Qatar. They're also building terminals. They don't want the US to grab market share, etc. So at the end of the day, we look at supply and demand, look at the cost of gas, etc. So the US will probably be able to build maybe 4, maybe 5 terminals, but not more. That's as far as gas is concerned. Oil is a lot of question today. As you know, the United States cannot export crude oil. But today, the US is number 2, could become number 1 very soon. Supplier of oil, 9 million barrels a day. If you look at the increase in production over the past 5 years, it's been 3 million barrels a day. It's quite a big number, from 6 to 9, 3 million. We talk a lot about OPEC. Many OPEC countries produce 1 million barrels a day. 1 million. Many OPEC countries. The US increased its production by 3 million barrels a day. That gives you perspective, the amount of oil. So I think at some point in the future when Congress realized that there is plenty of oil here in the United States, I think they'll probably lift the ban on exporting oil, and then oil can be exported. I agree with that. The question is when, but okay.
How does political stability affect your plans of construction and other energy services that SUEZ offers?
Yeah. Political stability is very important for us. Having said that, we are a company that takes calculated risk. We operate in some countries in the world where, if you look at it from here, what are you doing? For example, in Pakistan, still operating in Pakistan. We have power plants, we have people there who sell electricity, except that power plants, we have the army around our power plant. Still, they still produce electricity gas. We are in many African countries right now. So we build, remember in emerging markets, we build infrastructure. We deal with governments and big businesses. So when we look at things on a risk-adjusted basis. So we take risks, we take very calculated risks, and so far it's been good. You have to be active in some countries because that's where, frankly, demand is, especially for big power plants. Remember what I was telling you, if you look at mature markets, you could argue maybe more stable markets. Demand is no longer there. Nobody needs to build a lot of power plants and gas plants because they have everything. So the United States, is it going to be more than 1,000 gigawatts in the future? I doubt it. I think demand is going to go down. So maybe it will stay 1,000 gigawatts for the next 100 years. But consumption of electricity in places like China, India, etc., and Africa is absolutely there. People need electricity. There's a need for people to go invest there, and we would like to be part of that. Please.
You talked a little bit about small-scale batteries, like the one in my car, for example. But China, I know, is experimenting with using large-scale battery technology to help them actually dispatch renewables on their grid. Do you see that as being viable in the next 10 years?
This is a question around batteries. The question is, small batteries exist, what about bigger batteries? I think it's possible. I really do. I think bigger batteries will be there, and they can be. In fact, the utility here in Texas, Oncall, suggested that they should perhaps build a lot of these batteries, large-scale batteries, and put them everywhere to help them stabilize the grid, as long as the taxpayer pays for that. So putting that aside, I think it's possible. It's only a question of cost. Because right now, there is storage, different kind of storage. For example, here in the Northeast, we have pump storage. Essentially what you do with pump storage, you pump water out at night when demand is not there, and then you store the water, and then when demand goes up, you pump it down to generate electricity. That is storage. Nobody would build such a thing anymore. It was built 120 years ago, whatever it was. So we need to find a cheaper way of storing electricity. And batteries is really a way forward.
Right, question.
let me go over there, because you asked 3 questions. So I'll come back to this.
What are some of the challenges for this specific energy industry today?
Say that again?
What are some of the challenges for this specific company as an energy industry today?
What are the challenges for us, you mean?
Yeah, as an
Challenge.
energy industry.
Well, we have a lot of challenges. I think our business model needs to change. It really does need to change. I think we need to adapt. If you look at our business model today, it has been, I want to build big things. I want to meet the needs of governments around the world, of countries around the world. I'm very good at coming there, I can build a power plant, I can operate it for the next 25 years. I can build a gas plant and I can sell you gas. I can explore for E&P. These are the skills that we have. Another business which is energy services, energy efficiency. They put that with us. The challenge, the market is moving. People don't need big power plants anymore in some markets. They want small ones. How do we do that? And the consumer needs different things. So we really need to adapt. And by the way, I'll be very frank with you, with the exception of some businesses that we have, as I talked about, we don't have to with the customer value because we never really had a customer before. So the challenge for us is how do we meet the needs of the customer? How do we serve these customers? How can we do it using the latest technology, etc.? But that's not in our DNA yet. But we're moving, we're changing fast, and that's why if you look at the US here, we're creating new companies, we invest in smaller companies. We want to, we're thinking in some now, we're thinking maybe taking one group of people, put them in a different building, not the same building, completely different. You know, they want Einstein to play table tennis. So get them to play table tennis, get them to do what they want to do. It's very different. The workers are different, and the customers are different. So this is a challenge for us. Can we really match and keep up with the Silicon Valley companies, and especially the other thing is attracting talent. How can we attract you versus maybe a tech company because it's bad IT, it's the world is because it's cool to work for a tech company versus a big so the challenge is how can we attract people to come to us and bring them know-how, interested, what they know, and the adaptability and the incentive for it.
Okay, one more question.
Please.
What's your policy on managing the currency risk and the commodity pricing risk? What's your philosophy?
Yeah. You know, we really don't do a lot of hedging. You know why we don't do a lot of hedging in terms of currency? Because wherever we operate, we tend to invest in that currency and get the money from that currency. Or if we, for example, build a power plant which is in dollar, we get paid back in dollars. So we don't do a lot of hedging. So our exposure really is US dollar versus the euro, which would obviously be P&L is in euros. But we don't do a lot of hedging, so currency doesn't play a big part to what we do. The other thing as well, when you see the big shifts in currency that happen recently, when we explain it, our investors understand that. We say, look, these are the results using constant currency, and this is the change in the currency. We calculated this year because there was a big shift in some currencies, real, particularly Brazil real, and we just explained it and they understand. So we don't do a lot of it. On some projects, if we have to, if that happens, want to, etc. By and large, we do not do a lot of it.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here, and I want to say this is why you are for the Distinguished Leader Series. You took a company and made it sound very exciting. You have a lot of energy around it, and I think that when you say that these students want to go to tech companies because they're cool, I don't know, I think it sounds pretty cool. So